The following video footage was captured live at a rare Dr. Schulze public appearance. Dr. Schulze was told that without open-heart surgery, he would be dead by age 20. Instead, he healed himself of his life-threatening heart deformity and of other incurable injuries. He then made it his life's work to help others have healing miracles too. Over 50,000 people worldwide have followed Dr. Schulze's natural healing programs. Many have healed themselves of so-called killer and incurable diseases. Because his patients dared to heal themselves of cancer, AIDS, diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and other diseases that medicine declares incurable, his clinic was forced to close, and he now lives in hiding. Dr. Schulze is a very dangerous man to doctors and drug companies, but to you, he just might save your life.
Okay, time has come. I can hardly wait. Got through this morning. Now we get to talk about my favorite subject. The toilet's backed up yet? Yeah! I love to hear that. I love to hear that. You know, when we first came to the Holiday Inn, Sally and I thought, well, maybe we can get, there's other groups, New Age groups here that hold events and radical people, and we thought, well, they must bring their own food in. We can all get together, and it'll be an easier job on us. And he goes, no, they all eat down in the restaurant. And we're going to talk about this when we talk about putting programs together, how you have to put programs together. And then I said, well, other groups, this many people up here in the penthouse, because we like to rent the whole top floor so we don't have to see anybody eating a hamburger or smoking a cigar. And I said, other groups must have plugged the toilets. And he said, never. We've never had a problem with the bathroom. And we said, well, we're going to need a full-time person out there with a plunger following our people in. They do think we're a pretty weird group. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this does prove that toilets weren't designed for people who are healthy. You know that we have overloaded septic systems. We'd like to have this event in a nice organic farm, but every time we've done it, we've overloaded their septic systems, totally blown it out. Poop was bubbling out of the ground. The bottom line is even septic systems, you know, when they're engineered and designed, who are they designed for? The average American. So if you get 200 average American in a room for one day, you're going to have what? 1 or 2 poops? Okay? For the whole group. We're very different. And so this is something I've seen all my life. And so this afternoon, we're going to start at the beginning. Why here? You know, when I first started studying natural healing and went and trained with Pavararoli, he talked a lot about pooping, and Dr. Christopher talked a lot about pooping. And then I trained with Bernard Jensen, and he not only talked about it, I had to sit through hours of full-color pictures of him holding fecal matter. Like, look at what I got out of these people. And I thought, oh my God, does everybody in natural healing have a poop fetish or something? I mean, why? And you know, when I trained with him, at one of the months, it was August, it was like 98 degrees in his clinic, and it was hot in the room, and no fan, and more poop, and more poop, and more poop. But I learned the power of cleansing out the bowel and how it has to start with elimination. I teach all over the world, and students of natural healing are always saying to me, where do you begin, Dr. Schulze? Where do you begin with leukemia? Where do you begin with Parkinson's disease? Where do you begin with alateral sclerosis? Where do you begin with arthritis? Where do you begin with heart disease and cancer and AIDS? The answer is all the same. There's the first step, and it can never be missed. And the first step is cleaning the poisons out of your body, opening up the elimination channels, the bowel, the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the lungs. You've got to get it out. Before you can do anything, you have to get it out. Many people would like to think they could just take something in and be well. You can't take it in yet. You first have to get it out. You know, I've met thousands of people around the world that have come to me and said, well, Dr. Schulze, I tried that carrot juice, but after 6 hours, I had headaches. I was feeling horrible. I said, did you cleanse your bowels first? Well, no. How do you expect to do any cleansing or detoxification? Because that's all about taking things into your body to get out of your fat cells and your muscle tissue and your blood poisons and get them out of your body. But if your elimination channels aren't working, you're just going to unleash all those poisons within you and you're going to feel horrible. The first step that can never be skipped, this is foundation. We're going to talk a lot about foundational programs. These are for everybody. The first foundational program is cleaning out the intestines, cleaning out the bowel. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of my bowel history. It starts with my dad. Every Sunday, my dad used to go in the bathroom to have his bowel movement. And he took the Sunday paper with him, and he'd be in there sometimes 3 hours reading that Sunday paper, and sometimes I'd hear a little, and that Sunday paper would be in there, and then he'd finally come out, and I'd go in for my bowel movement. Something about my dad having a bowel movement stimulated my peristalsis. And I would go in, and it was like a green cloud, you know, a toxic waste dump in there. When you go once a week, it isn't very pretty. And then I would have my bowel movement. I remember sometimes it wouldn't come out. And when it did, it was kind of like, it was like, talk about an asteroid. It was like a black, hard ball, like granite. It used to come out so hard and fast, I thought it was going to chip the porcelain on the toilet. And I'd be just thrilled it came out because I used to have stomach aches. And talk about a sinker. This sucker was going down. I never saw anything float. I never saw anything dissolve or decompose. And that to me was pooping as a kid. And that's what I remember. And when I got into school, it wasn't much better. But I did have to go. In the school I went to, it was very simple. 1 finger to pee, 2 to poop. And you had to raise your hand and ask the teacher to go to the bathroom. And I learned the first hour, don't raise 2 fingers. You raise 1, that's fine, but if you have to poop, you still raise 1. That was the underlying rule I didn't know about, because I raised 2, and I saw everybody go, he's got to poop. And I learned that you cannot be cool and poop. You can't have both of those. So I learned to lie. My first lie is, I just got to pee, honest. I got to pee. And our bathroom was like a door right off the classroom. So then I realized the second rule of survival socially in school, don't have any noises happen in there. Because the first time I went in there was a, noise. And when I had that noise, I could hear laughter out into the classroom, just like this laughter. And I could hear the teacher couldn't even talk. And I thought, oh, God, they're laughing at me. So I learned how to flush the toilet 15 times so no one would ever hear. We've done that, haven't we? Flush it so no one would hear me going to the bathroom. And I learned survival in school was really about never pooping. In fact, I got to where I could hold it to where I would just go home and poop there. And I was so constipated, I remember once I pooped in my pants in school and I just left it in all day. It was so hard, it wasn't going to do anything. It wasn't going to go anywhere. It was just there. I know. Some of you can relate to that. A big part of healing my heart was getting my bowel to work. And boy, did I feel a difference when I started having regular bowel movements. In fact, it reminded me of in school a couple times when I was really like, I can wait 3 more hours, I'm going to go home, I'm not pooping here. I remember then my heart hurting, and I remember going to the nurse's office when they first diagnosed me with a heart murmur when I was real young, was when I was holding all this poison in my body. Now, when you get older, as we get to be adults, it doesn't get much better, does it? I know, look at, Los Angeles. I travel around Los Angeles. I was in the bank, and I said, I got to go. I'd like to use the bathroom, please. And the teller said, I'm sorry, for security reasons, the bathroom's only for employees. And I said, you don't understand. I mean, the sweat's starting to bead up on my forehead. I said, I gotta go. And she goes, I'm sorry, there's no way you can use the bathroom in the bank. She goes, try next door. So I carefully walked next door, and it's a thrift shop. And I said, I'd like to use the bathroom. They said, our bathroom's out of order. Try the restaurant next door. I get next door, and it's a cheeseburger joint. And I said, I got to use the bathroom. And I thought, and then they said to me, you can't use the bathroom unless you buy something to eat here. And I thought, if I buy something to eat here, I won't have to use the bathroom. And that's how bad it is in a city, isn't it? And then when you find a bathroom, it looks like, you know, heroin addicts use it. There's toilet paper all over the floor. That it's usually full of crap that didn't flush. It's filthy. I mean, what is this telling us about our bowel habits? We have rewarded ourselves by this with the highest incidence of colon rectal cancer of the world. Yeah! We got it now. Yeah. We won. We won. We won in the world. We have the highest incidence of rotting guts of the whole world. You know, I was over in Paris, France, and they have a nice bathroom on almost every street corner. Beautiful, automated bathroom. They're, you know, we say the French, you know, live longer because they drink. They probably live longer just because they let themselves go to the bathroom. So I thought, I'm going to get in one of these, and you put in your franc or 2 francs, and the door goes, opens up, automated, and I go in, and the door goes, shuts, and a light goes on, and I'm in this, like, cubicle. It's like pooping in space or something. And I thought, this is great. I got to go. I'm ready. And I turn around. There's no toilet. And there's this little porcelain dish hanging off the wall, just about that big, little porcelain dish. I thought, well, this is great, but I don't need to wash my hands. And I'm looking, and there's no sink. There's nothing, this porcelain dish. And, you know, I mean, you got to go, you got to go. And I thought, oh, my God, I can't poop in this porcelain dish. They'll throw me out of France. But after a while, your body wins. And my body went, and I sat on my little porcelain dish, and then I got off, and I'm just staring at it. And I thought, oh, this is it. I'm going to jail. And I cleaned up as best I could, and I went out, and the door opened, and there was a man waiting outside, but the door went and shut. And I thought, oh, my God. And then when it shut, I heard all this noise going on. And then he was putting in his money, and I thought, oh, God, he's going to open the door. He's going to see I pooped in the French sink or something. And when the door opened, there was nothing there. It was all clean, and it was all gone. It was some automated poop remover thing. And I find public restroom facilities all over the world, where it's easy and convenient to go. And we don't offer that in this country. We make it a problem. I mean, everybody in here has had a problem finding a place to go, and that shouldn't be. And that's why we have so much disease. Another reason is we don't talk about it. Another reason is we think it's dirty. I've heard moms and dads referring to their children's bowel movements as a dirty or a nasty poo-poo. You did a bad one. You know, we have all this negativity around it, and then our own embarrassment, and then you work at jobs, and they say, well, you can go during your break. The only problem is when your break comes, you don't have to go anymore, do you? I know. It's funny. It's ridiculous. Look at the way we torture ourselves. We really hurt ourselves and shut that muscular movement off, that peristalsis. We shut it down. Remember I said how we get rid of our intuition and the voice of God and our inner voice, and we erase it and bury it so bad we can't hear common sense anymore. Okay, the same thing with this. You shut this muscular movement off time and time again, and after a while, you just don't get it anymore. And that's how we get ourselves the highest incidence of colon rectal cancer in the entire world. We've won the contest. Now, in the first year of operating my clinic, a woman came to see me. Very lovely lady, a few health problems. And she told me a story about her daughter who had some severe constipation. And her daughter was 15, and the constipation was severe, and the doctors even got to where they'd bring her to the hospital and go in with their fingers and dig it out and remove the fecal matter that had dried inside her. And she had a lot of stomach cramps and a lot of problems. And the doctors finally said that her bowel was going to rot, so they decided to give her a colostomy, a total removal of the bowel at 15 years of age. And this is such a crime. I see it happen to youngsters all over this country. It's a horror. And the family decided to go with it. If they wouldn't, they probably would have been thrown in jail and their kids taken away from them. So they decided to go through it, and when she woke up, you know, the reality, the doctor said a simple surgery, but what they mean is simple for them to perform. The reality of waking up with a hole cut in your side, an incision from here to here, gutted, is a harsh reality, and then a nurse showing you how to glue the plastic bag onto your stoma so your wet, drippy fecal matter can come out into it. That's a life change. But she dealt with it, went home, but she started getting depressed. And for her 16th birthday, her mom decided to have a sweet 16 party for her to celebrate. Bought her a new party dress, went out and got a nice new dress, and invited all her friends over. And she had a new boyfriend in school, invited her new boyfriend, had the party that evening while she was dancing, slow dancing with her new boyfriend. Her bag came unglued because she didn't really know how to put the appliance on correctly, and hot fecal matter went all over her dress and all over her boyfriend, and of course the party was over. She ran upstairs, was crying hysterically. Mom tried to help her, figure it'll be better in the morning, and when she went up in the morning, her daughter had killed herself, hung herself and killed herself. I got that one in the first year of my practice, and I felt exactly how you all feel right now. I decided then and there, this is the last story I'm going to hear like this. So I started mixing bowel herbs together. You know, bowel herbs didn't work very well for me either. My first bowel cleansing was very primitive because I used what was in the store, and guess what happened? Nothing. I used what I found in the store. It didn't work, and so I started mixing together all types of herbs to get my bowel to work, and drinking prune juice and apple juice and these herbs. And I remember I had a job as a painter when I was about 18, and when you're 18 and you're a painter, they put you way up in the air because you'll do the things someone with more sense won't. And I used to be on the top of all these extension ladders painting the peaks. And in fact, the extension ladder was moving, so when it would move in, I'd paint. When it would move out, I'd get a little more. And I was way up there. You know, this is back east on the 3-story jobs, houses, you know. And I was doing all this bowel cleansing, and the boss came up, and he said, "Hey, you, the new guy." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you reach the peak?" And I thought, "Sure." That was my first experience with my power bowel cleansing. I had gone too far, maybe. And what do you do when you're up 3 stories on the end of a ladder with a paintbrush in one hand and a pants full of it? But worse things could have happened. I think some of you laughing have probably had that experience also. That's better than killing yourself. We might laugh, but all the laughs in here are better than the tears and better than the dying and the pain. So when I heard this lady, I thought, well, I know how to mix up some bowel stuff. See, I used to use my brother as a laboratory rat, since we don't experiment on animals. And my brother named the first one TNT Herbal Explosive. And the second one he named Depth Charges. And he's never taken any sense. He said it worked 25 years ago and it's still working. But after this woman told me this story about her daughter committing suicide, I got a phone call in less than a week. And a lady with an 11-year-old son, she called on a Monday, and the kid was going to go in for a colostomy surgery, removal of the entire bowel on Thursday. People give me a lot of time to work. No one ever called, let's call Dr. Schulze the crazy weed doctor first. You know, people will do everything else first, but they were desperate now. They were set up for surgery. So she said, "Can you help?" And I said, "You get over here." And I mixed her up some of my herbal explosive. She gave it to her son. She called me back the next morning, and she said a bowel movement came out of him as long as from her fingertips to her elbow as big around as her forearm. She said that once it was in the toilet, they couldn't flush it down. Her husband had to get a shovel out of the garage and chop it up to get it down the toilet. This is constipation. That kid now is almost 40, I think, and has his bowel. Okay, isn't this amazing? I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to see how easy it is to clean out someone's bowel. I've had some very, very constipated people in my clinic. When I trained with Dr. Christopher, he said to me that he had a woman that only had one bowel movement a month, and I thought, okay, now we're telling fish stories. Okay, yeah. Well, I had one that only had one bowel movement a month, and I had a hard time digesting that until I started seeing some advanced constipation in my clinic also. And I remember my first patient that only had one bowel movement a month was very thin, was a model. And I thought, where is this going? How can you eat twice a day and only have one bowel movement a month? It's really amazing. It's David Copperfield. Or I don't know how it's done, but it's done. Then I had other people who had one bowel movement every 2 months. In 1994, I had a record breaker, though, ladies and gentlemen. In 1994, I had a lady that only had 6 bowel movements in an entire year. Guess what she did for a living? An attorney. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. 6 bowel movements in a year. It gets better. Then in 1995, I met Teresa up in Santa Rosa, California. And during her pregnancy, she only went once every other month, once every 2 months. But during her pregnancy, only had 3 bowel movements, one a trimester, and her record now was 5 bowel movements in 1 year. But the record was broken about 3 days ago. Some of you have met Ron Manwarren out there. I'm going to introduce all our great people later. But Ron at work was wearing one of his Dr. Schulze t-shirts, and a woman there said, "You know Dr. Schulze?" He goes, "Yeah, I work the Crusades, and I'm a friend." And she said, "I want to get this letter to him. Dear Dr. Schulze, I've had 3 colon surgeries because my normal bowel only moved once every 6 months. Now we're down to twice a year. Pretty soon we'll get once a year and then once a decade." She said, the long and short of it is after doing the bowel cleansing, she now has a bowel movement every day using the products we're going to talk about in a little bit and our wonderful blessing of our bowel cleansing herbs. So we have a new winner to the contest. Now, some of you might beat that record of 2 bowel movements a year. My family was working towards that. Just give us, if I wouldn't have gone this way and we would have had about 30 more generations to work on it, I think we could have made it. So what is normal? What is normal? Everybody asks me that. What is normal? What's the normal way for the bowel to work? Sally tells me we get more calls on that. How should my bowel work? I don't know. So what I did is I traveled all around the world for about 5 years in search of the perfect bowel movement. Now, how many people you know can say that one? I've been in Central and South America. I have been to Asia and India and Africa. I have searched for the perfect one. And here's what I saw, and I looked mostly at primitive people. I wanted to find people that were not that infected or affected by modern lifestyle. So I looked for people that lived very simply. Their biggest stress during the day was, should we put another leaf on the hut? That dug their food out of the ground and ate it pretty fresh. It was all whole grain, whole fiber food. Got plenty of exercise, had very little stress. And what I saw around the world with these people is they would eat, and then within a half an hour, they would go over to some special spot and go. And they averaged 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. They averaged 1 bowel movement per meal they ate. Okay? So if they ate 3 meals, it was 3 bowel movements a day. It was 21 bowel movements a week. The average American has 2 to 3 bowel movements a week. That means they're over 15 bowel movements behind every week. Now, I picked up a nice copy of the health book that was used by the city of Los Angeles to teach children. And it said it is normal to have a bowel movement every 3 to 5 days. 1 bowel movement every 3 to 5 days. That's what we teach our kids. And that's not what's happening out there. That's not what is happening with primitive people who eat simple diets with low stress and plenty of exercise. But that's what's happening to us, 1 bowel movement every 3 to 5 days, and that's why we have the highest incidence of disease of our gut of anywhere in the world. It's very enlightening when you run a clinic and you start hearing the bowel stories. What was the consistency like? Very soft, sometimes unformed, of the primitive people. A normal bowel movement should be soft, light in color, unformed or barely formed, kind of like soft peanut butter. Trying to give you a food analogy. And should come out easy. You know, I went to a health convention not that long ago, and I go into the men's room and it's all these stalls with no doors on them. Well, that makes people feel very comfortable right off the bat, doesn't it? Welcome, have a nice relaxed bowel movement and let everybody watch you. Primitive people even went behind the tree. So I sat down in my stall, and what I could hear in harmony was this. I thought someone was dying. This is what I heard. I couldn't believe it. I'm at a health convention. Even after I was done, I went and I looked at the stall next door, and there was a guy sitting there. I thought he blew an artery in his forehead. This is constipation. It's amazing to me. I mean, you should walk in the bathroom, go, I gotta go, sit down, go, get up, and you're out of there. If you have a stack of National Geographics in there, you're in trouble. I mean, every once in a while, I'm really into something. I go, okay, I'm going to take this in with me. What do? You got to set it down. You don't have time to read anything. That's a sure sign of constipation. The first thing that I did with every patient is the intestinal formula number 1. So we're going to start talking about that right now. This capsulated formula that you all have in your bag. My first rule was to get the bowel cleaned out. Some people say, well, yes, if I get on a high-fiber food program, won't that do it? We don't have time. I'm not going to wait for that. Might do it in 2 days. It might do it in 2 years, depending on your inherited bowel strength. What about if I drink a lot of liquid? That'll help. Prunes will help. More fruit will help. Thinking better, loving yourself, exercise. All these things will help, but I want to guarantee your bowel works tomorrow morning. That was the guarantee, and that's why I created the intestinal formula number 1, for that reason. I don't care what you eat. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you drink. You will have a bowel movement tomorrow morning with the intestinal formula. And that's what it's designed to do, period. Now, it does more, but that's the only reason I designed it, was to force your bowels to work. And it is amazing, the bowel stories, and we'll get some of yours. I can't wait. I love bowel stories. Oh, it's endless. This woman, her bowel. So she started on the intestinal formula number 1. A friend of mine gave me it for a Christmas present. Great friend. Now you want to know what to give that gift for that person who has everything? She said, I didn't have any bowel movements right away, but I was sure throwing up. Wonderful. Wonderful. The word of natural healing is wonderful. All we want to do is get the stuff out. Where it comes out, I don't care. Just get it out, throwing up. But I kept taking it. Yes, that's what I like to hear. Not, it's too harsh for me. Okay, I kept taking it. I was throwing up and I kept taking it. And I started going normal. This is a once every 6 months or 2 a year. Or if you want to figure that out, she's going to have normally about 120 bowel movements in her entire life. And she started going. I really became very sick. I started taking the dark powder, and now I really got sick, so sick I ended up in the hospital. Sitting on the toilet in the hospital, going to the bathroom like crazy. Finally, after she couldn't stand anymore, the nurses put her up onto the table, and they said that there's no stool in the toilet, just a gigantic tapeworm. I save these stories for after lunch. Wow. Oh, I got a lot of worm stories for you. And I'm sure some of you have some too. ICF number 1, I call it sometimes, intestinal corrective formula number 1. It's all about getting your bowel working. See, we have peristalsis in this organ. From your mouth to here, it's just one big tube. It's one big tube. And let me tell you, besides the mouth and here, there's no way out. Okay, so this person that was having one bowel movement a month, it wasn't like it was coming out somewhere else. Oh, it might come out your skin a little bit or somewhere else, but this is the way out. And so you have to get it moving. It's a big hollow tube. But all along that tube, there's a massage going on. When you chew, when you start chewing and your digestive juices start flowing, you swallow food and there's a massage down your esophagus to move that food down into your stomach, where there's another massage going on to break up that food in your stomach that massages through your pylorus into your duodenum, into your small intestine, where there's another massage going on to help you assimilate this food, to push it through your ileocecal valve into your colon, where there's another massage going on to remove this material from your body. And that massage is called peristalsis, or the muscular movement of your intestinal tract, and it's what you shut off years ago, and I shut off years ago because it was embarrassing. And the intestinal formula number 1 doesn't care how embarrassed you get. It's going to make that massage start happening again. Now, some of us need more massage than others. Some people just need a few capsules, and that's it. They're going. Other people may need to stay on it for the rest of their life. I just look at the bottle, and I got to go because I fixed myself with that. Now, what gets that massage going? Well, exercise gets that massage going, but we have a lack of exercise. Fiber in food gets that going. But how much fiber is there in beef, chicken, pork, poultry, milk, fish? Zero. There's no fiber in animal food, and that's the main part of our diet now is animal food. So we have no fiber, very little exercise. What kind of mind tapes are we playing? The next thing you know is we don't go. And the intestinal formula number 1 will make you poop. I don't care how constipated you are, it will make you poop. I don't care if you're dead, it'll make you poop. Because you don't have to think about it. This isn't something you have to take and sit down and meditate about. It's going to take over. It will take over. There is a direct chemical reaction. You can take a colon out of a person. They do this in naturopathic school. Pin it to a table. The person is dead already. You never know with medicine. Pin it to a table and just put the herbs on this colon. And these herbs contain a chemical called an anthraquinone, and the specific one in aloes, senna, and cascara sagrada is called a modin. And when that chemical makes contact with the wall of the bowel, there is a muscular contraction right there on the table. You can make the muscle move. That's why I said even if Uncle Harry's dead or you're not sure, you can still get him to have a bowel movement. I have had so many people call me and say, you don't understand, Dr. Schulze. Our baby was born without any nerves to the bowel. And the doctors say it was impossible for our baby ever to have a bowel movement. I had that baby having normal bowel movements in 3 days. I had another baby. People brought it to me and said, you don't understand, it has no nerves to the bowel. In fact, it's so bad, they're going to do a colostomy on this baby, and it was only 8 months old. 8 months old, and they were going to gut it. And I said, well, how bad is it? And they said, not only when they x-rayed it, they found fecal matter backed up into its stomach, but one day it vomited fecal matter. Now that's backed up. We had that baby having bowel movements in no time. I had a man up on stage in San Diego, had tears in his eyes. After a gallbladder surgery, they cut his nerves by accident, and he could no longer have a bowel movement. At 70 years of age, he had to give himself an enema every morning, and he said, I don't want to live anymore. Someone told him about the intestinal formula. He has bowel movements every day. I don't care what the damn doctor says. You're getting that, right? Okay, don't listen to these lies, because they're all about the average American, not about someone who will do something different. These herbs are probably one of the greatest blessings we have, and they work wonderfully, yes, and they clean you out. And I don't care what the story is. I don't care, like I said, if a person's dead, we'll still get them to have one last poop. Clean them out. I've never, ever, ever had an exception to this rule. This is the Dr. Schulze guarantee. Use this formula, it'll open up. Sooner or later, it'll open up. Now, how soon? I don't know. Maybe tomorrow morning. The rule with, anybody got a bottle of formula number 1? Would you toss me your bottle? Thank you. I can. Doing that for the video. Close up. Some cake wax, floor polish. Take the rust off bumpers. Multi-purpose product. Intestinal formula number 1 will get your bowel working. How do you take it? You put it in your mouth, you swallow the capsule. I designed this one that anybody could do. You swallow the capsule with dinner, with some food in your stomach, one capsule, and you see what happens in the morning. Hopefully what will happen is you'll go in and you'll sit down and you'll go, wow, this is different. You might not get a wow. If you don't get a wow that day in the evening with your dinner, take 2 capsules. And hopefully the next morning you'll have your wow. And you keep increasing by 1 capsule every day. Some people want to take 5 or 6 at once. Fine, but some people have done that and learned the laws of jet propulsion. So I would highly suggest to be patient. This person may have been constipated for years, so let's take some time. I'm a big fan of long, wide turns at getting well and not these quick turn on a dimes to get well. So take your time and take your formula and be patient and you'll get your wow. How many capsules can you take? We get letters all the time. I'm up to 6. Do I dare take any more? There's no limit. There's no limit. Our limit was once 28 capsules someone took, but I just had that limit broken. Got a nice letter from a person in Hawaii. This person took 45 capsules before their bowel worked. And they took 45 capsules at midnight, and at 7 in the morning they started going. They didn't stop for hours. And in a 24-hour period, lost 52 pounds. Yeah! I love these record breakers. 52 pounds. And I talked to his wife on the phone, and she goes, I always told him he was full of it. 52 pounds in one sitting. That's full of it, isn't it? Amazing. And had to get up to 45, so there's no record. Try to break that record. I'd like to hear about it. One of your friends. I'd like to hear about it. There's no record. You keep taking, increasing by 1 capsule. Some people have said, well, what if I become addicted to it? Fine, get cancer. Fine, you don't have your bowels rot out. What is the downside of being constipated? All types of colon diseases, all types of colon problems, and eventually maybe even you will reward yourself with a malignancy in your bowel that will metastasize and eat up your whole body and kill you. What's the downside of taking herbs? I haven't found any yet besides whatever this costs a month. I don't see any downsides. I never had any patients have any problems. Some people think, well, I'll become addicted to this. I never seen that. You may need to continue to take it for a while, and if you choose not to make any lifestyle changes, and this is the only thing you do, you'll probably take it for the rest of your life. And that's okay. It's better than having one bowel movement a year for the rest of your life, right? So keep taking the herbs. But as you decide to make changes and you eat food with more fiber and move your body a little bit more and think some better thoughts and do some other cleansing, you will find that after a while you will need less and less and less of this. I took this product for 12 years before my bowel worked great. And now I have a bowel movement, I'd like to say within 20 or 30 minutes after a meal, but I usually have to stop eating and go. Kind of a halfway stop. I got to get this out of my hand before I have to go. Isn't it really silly that I have to stand up here and talk to all you middle-aged people about pooping? What the heck do they teach us in school? Think about it. All these important subjects that I'm going to talk about this week, nobody talks about them. And this is why our kids have so much problem, and this is why we have so much problems. We have to start talking about this stuff again. You know, if we start talking about it, it'll go away. That's why I'm up here. Intestinal formula number 1. It'll put a smile on people's faces. I can't tell you the tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands now, that have used this formula to clean their bowel out. And later on, we'll talk a little more about the specific herbs in it. You know, American Botanical has a new catalog that's in print right now and will be here Wednesday. We're going to have for everybody. We have some new products in it. We always have a lot more products when we haven't been busted for a while. And then you saw, if any of you had our catalog after the 4th of July, you had a choice of superfood, superfood, or superfood. And now we're getting bold again and have more products. We get busted less and less because they've made me a martyr. This is a wonderful position to be in. Now I'm doing more damage than good for them to bust me. You know, the last time they shut us down for 11 days. And I had people and patients pounding on the door. The FDA showed up one day. They almost got lynched right in front of American Botanical Pharmacy. So they let me reopen in 11 days. And you know what I had to do to reopen? Put an automatic spring on the bathroom door. Cost me $1.50 at Home Depot. So they're running out of springs. They're running out of things to tell me to do, because all I'm telling people to do is use God's blessings to help yourself get well. And so on this last one, a man from one of the departments said to me, "What is all this stuff? You think you could help?" He goes, "I got a secretary with colitis, and she's just ripped up by it." I said, "Sure." I said, "This one over here." I sent him out with a big bag. Big bag of products. He called me and thanked me. He said, "I couldn't believe it. In 2 days, it was a blessing." Person from the said, "Okay, Dr. Schulze, where's the herbal ecstasy and the herbal high stuff you sell?" I said, "I don't sell any of that." She goes, "Come on, we know you're selling herbal street drugs and, you know, all this stuff." And I said, "I swear I don't sell it." She goes, "Come on, we know you're selling the herbal ecstasy and all that." I said, "Look, the only ecstasy my customers have is when they take a big dump in the toilet." I got a little upset, lost my composure. And she was like, she never heard that one in school. She was starting to tear in her eyes. And she goes, "You're going to tell me that your whole gigantic business here is based on laxatives?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she went into the front, and we had to take down all my letters from people. because people send us lots of letters. I've been healed, I've been healed, I've been healed. And I put them up. And a lot of people have stapled to it their hospital reports, the doctor's reports, the blood tests. And she said I had to take them all down. I said, but look. And she goes, how do we know you didn't write them all? Like I got nothing better to do than to sit up all night with different colored pens with my left hand and my right hand and upside down and write myself letters? But then we got down to it. She knows I've always had this problem. And I said, okay. And I talked to her, sent her away with her bag. Lo and behold, she wrote me a letter. She wrote me a letter, and it said about her bowel thing. And I called her up, and I said, this is wonderful. And she goes, it's a miracle. And I said, can I put your letter up? I was traveling to England, and customs gets me once in a while, and they got me and opened my box and found 150 bottles of intestinal formula. I mean, doesn't everybody carry that many? They said, what is this? And I said, it's bowel cleanser. And they said, 150 bottles? And I said, you know, I have a lot of friends, and, you know, wherever I go, I'm like Johnny Bowel Cleanser. I hand it out. Everybody needs some, right? Everybody can use a little help. And the head came over, and they had the dogs all around me, the puppy dogs jumping up on me, and they said, look, we're going to have to take this down to the lab, alert your airlines that you're going to miss your connection, you're not going to make the super shuttle, and you're probably going to end up sleeping in the airport, but we have to test all this stuff, and it'll take a couple hours. I said, fine. And one of the customs agents, Her Majesty's Customs, said, well, what is this? And I said, it's bowel. I said, don't you know about the bowel and how we've lost our peristalsis? Next thing I know, there's 2 or 3 people. So there was that luggage thing right here. So I got up on top of it. And next thing I know, there were about 16, 17 customs agents here because the planes had gone and there wasn't anybody in the airport. And I was telling them, don't you know about the diseases that you can have in your intestines? And they got it. They got healed. And so I was starting to sell it to them. And I couldn't convert the pound sterling to the dollar very well. So one of them brought up a calculator and was doing the adding for everybody. And I was selling them. And just in the middle of that, the head of the customs came back up out of the lab. And he said, what are you all doing? And they said, you got to listen to this guy. Did you know that everybody has diverticulosis? And he was like, we haven't even tested this stuff yet. And they said, you got to hear this story. I guess the point is I'm a good salesman. But the real point is, and I said this earlier, we all open our hearts and minds to common sense. These customs people were just like anybody else. They had a problem on the John too, or someone in their family did, and they were just like anybody else. And everybody opens up to common sense, whether it's the customs officers, whoever it is. Get me going. I sold a bottle of bowel cleanser to a taxi driver in Las Vegas a few weeks ago. Let's talk a little bit about this product. Now, intestinal formula 1, the capsules, are designed to make your bowel work. Now, there are other herbs in there. There's barberry, the one that we were told doesn't do anything and it could be toxic, so never touch it. The barberry stimulates your liver to increase its flow of bile, which in turn can be a natural laxative. And the garlic is disinfectant in case you have any infection in your bowel or when any old material comes off, if there's an infected area, it'll disinfect it. And there's ginger in there to make everything move. Ginger's the downward energy plant, makes it all move through. And there's cayenne in there to stop any bleeding and stimulate the bowel more. So it does a lot of things. But you don't have to think about that. All you have to know is that it'll make you go. That's intestinal formula 1. Intestinal formula 2 now is to use once you're going. Now, I say in the literature to start it a week after the number 1, but you don't have to do it a week. Wait till you're going. Wait till your bowel's working. That may be a month or 2. Wait till you're just like clockwork. You eat, off to the John, you sit down, you're only in the bathroom a minute or 2. You'll discover that most toilet paper you buy doesn't work anymore. because when you stop having those granite balls and you start having the peanut butter, you'll notice that it just rips to shreds. You know, I have a great friend in Switzerland, because I travel all over the world, and he says, you know what the weirdest thing is about you Americans? And I said, what? And he says, you never wash your asses. I didn't know what it was in Switzerland. I thought it was a sink for midget all these years. But they have bidets and they wash. But we don't. And that's a great sign to our constipation, because we don't have to wash, do we? I used to have one of my, when I was a kid, and my dad would wipe me and he'd go, look, nothing on the paper. That's a good bowel movement. It's like it's wrapped in cellophane. That's what my dad used to say to me. And it was great. No mess, no fuss. You could just go and get up and put your pants on. There wasn't going to be anything there, right? But as you get older and you get healthier and your bowel consistency changes, you're probably going to have to change your brand of toilet paper too. It's true. Somebody's got to say it. You ever get in one of these places, probably like this place or gas station, they have this stuff that's like wax paper. What's that supposed to do? Smear it around everywhere? Who invented that? Obviously someone that was very constipated. I like the stuff where you're going and the next thing you know is you're giving yourself an exam. I mean, this stuff is a joke, and we have to change it. Okay, formula number 2. Tell me it hasn't happened. Those of you that are going, I can't believe he said that. Probably because it brought back memories. Thank you. Formula number 2. Formula number 2, you begin once your bowel's working really well. Formula number 2 is to go in and get out the old debris that has been collecting in there for years. Formula number 1 just makes the muscles move, but doesn't always get out the old stuff. Let's take a look at what the medical books say about the statistics of colon rectal disease in the United States today. We'll go back to the Merck Manual. Remember I mentioned that the Merck Manual was published by Merck Sharp and Dohme, one of the largest drug companies in the world, and written by an international team of considered the greatest doctors in the world. And I have their information on page 12. You can look at it or not. Remember, it doesn't matter. There's no test. I have many copies of the Merck Manual in my office going all the way back to when they first published it. And in the 1950 edition, they said that only 10% of American adults had herniated bowels or bowel pockets due to constipation. Now, I thought this was weird because Pavel Arola and Dr. John Christopher and Bernard Jensen and John Harvey Kellogg and Dr. Randolph Stone and Henry Lindlar and Benedict Lust and all the great natural healers said we all had this herniation. And doctors said, no, it's not true. But in 1955, the Merck's Manual said that 15% of American adults had herniated bowels or bowel pockets. In 1972 edition, they said 30% of American adults have herniated bowels and bowel pockets. In the 1987 edition, they said half of Americans have herniated bowels. And in the latest issue, the latest published Merck Manual, it now says 100% of Americans have herniated bowels if they live long enough. That's everybody. We have again awarded ourselves with the highest incidence of herniated bowels of anybody in the world. Yeah, we won. We won again. We got the highest disease, the highest amount of herniated bowels. Here's a direct quote. Every person will have many. Every American adult will have many if they live long enough. So what is diverticulosis? Let me give you a short explanation. If I were to draw a picture of your large intestine, This is your appendix. This is your rectum. This is where they want to put the laser radiation. This is your sigmoid colon, your descending colon, your sigmoid flexure, your ascending colon, hepatic flexion, transverse colon, thank you, your ascending colon, stop making me laugh, and your cecum. Cecum, ascending colon, hepatic flexure, the liver's over here, a transverse colon, a splenic flexure where it turns descending colon, sigmoid rectum anus. In your bowel, because as the food is processed in your small intestine and goes in, but since you are only having one bowel movement a day or one bowel movement every other day, you begin to have small saccular herniations of the muscular wall of the intestines. And they look just like this. You start developing these herniations. They can develop anywhere. There's just it's a bottom line of physics. You have something going in and nothing coming out. It has to stretch. Just like if you were to put too much air in a car tire, it could explode, or where there's weak areas of the rubber, it could just start bulging. Who's ever seen that in a balloon or a car tire where it starts to herniate? This is what this is. And because food's going in here 3 or 4 meals a day, but it's only coming out of here once a day or once a week or whatever, something has to give. And what happens is your bowel gives, and fecal matter is shoved into all these herniated areas. And this can be really old stuff. You ever see the Earth science television shows where they dig a core down into the planet and they pull up dirt from this far down? They go, this was 100 years ago, and this far down, this was 500 years ago, and 1,000 years ago, and so on. Well, you could probably do that in these. You might find, oh, last month's dinner right here. Maybe that junk food is a teenager here. Maybe here the Snickers bar, your first one, Halloween, 4 years old, right back in here. But it's some pretty ugly stuff in there. Our job now that your bowel is working every day is to vacuum this material out. And this is where a whole nother group of herbs come into play, which I call intestinal formula number 2. One of the first materials in this formula is clay. Clay is one of our greatest absorbers, one of our greatest vacuums. The ancients knew that, and they used a lot of clay. Clay put on anywhere of the body draws out of the body. It sucks out of the body. So just by putting clay on this part of your bowel, the clay can absorb 30 to 40 times its weight in fecal matter. It's the most powerful drawing agent we know. It's wonderful. This is why people put clay masks on their face. This clay is too strong to put on your face. I put this on my face one night, and in 40 minutes I thought I was going to suck my brains out through my nose. Don't do that. Not a good idea. Anisha, I couldn't believe it. A month ago, I saw her doing it. I said, get that off your face. Before she could get it off her face was all red, looked a little burnt. Not a face mask, a bowel mask. This is the idea. Bentonite clay will remove up to 40 times its weight in this material right here. It's going to lay right against here and draw it out. Secondly, fruit pectin. Fruit pectin draws, but chemically draws. Not like the clay, but through chemistry. Fruit pectin is very ionic, and it will draw out heavy metals like mercury and lead. It will even draw out radioactive material like strontium-90 and other radioactive materials out of your bowel. Now, some people say, well, where do I get mercury? Where don't you get mercury contamination? From the amalgam fillings in your mouth that are a lie. They're made out of mercury that slowly dissolve and leak into your body. Do you know that the American Dental Association today warns dentists from not saying that? But you go to a dentist that's honest and they'll say, oh yeah, that mercury's leaking into your system. Half the fresh fish tested has high levels of mercury in it. And lead's everywhere. Heck, I was in Hawaii not that long ago, and they said there was toxic amounts of lead in the air in Hawaii because the Navy was burning the big batteries off battleships in the land dumps and in the landfills. You can get lead contamination everywhere. The hydrocarbons, the smog, the fumes in the air contain lead. Mercury, lead, and radiation, it's all around us. It's all around us. It also contains charcoal. Charcoal is our greatest detoxifier, our greatest absorber. This is why this formula is black in color, because of the charcoal content. We just absorb the carpet. It's a great carpet cleaner too. If you have a white carpet, you may think twice before using it, but we're just going to vacuum this right up and it'll be just as good as new, I promise. Charcoal is known to remove over 3,000 toxic chemicals, insecticides, pesticides, fungicides, all types of environmental chemicals, natural chemicals, anything that'll hurt you. When you cut your water filter in half, what's inside every one of them? Charcoal. Charcoal to absorb things that hurt you. This is the greatest. My son gets this in a bottle. He calls it a black baba. And he knows that when he's got some intestinal problems, he gets a black baba. We gave him grape juice the other day. He goes, I don't want another black baba. I said, it's not a black baba, it's grape juice. Charcoal is the greatest absorber. You know, during Desert Storm, they thought that Saddam Hussein was going to use chemical warfare and nerve gas. And so they put our military inside the most modern and high-intensity contamination suits that we have as a modern civilization to protect them against nerve gas and chemical warfare and unknown chemicals. And guess what the suit was filled with? Charcoal. That's all that was in it, is charcoal. There is no better absorber of poisons and toxins than charcoal on this planet. The primitives knew it. Our ancestors, our grandparents knew it. What they have you do? Eat burnt toast when you were sick, right? The charcoal to absorb. It's the greatest absorber of anything that can hurt you. And then there are other herbs in here called mucilaginous herbs like slippery elm and marshmallow that turn slippery and soothing. Flaxseed, the oils that come out of the flaxseed. All these things reduce inflammation in your bowel, put the fire out. If you happen to know someone with a bowel inflammation, let me make this as a side note. 97–98% of us don't go enough, and we need intestinal formula number 1. But there's about 2% of us that go too much. We might have irritable bowel syndrome. We might have colitis or Crohn's disease or diverticulitis. And this type of person may have 10, 15 bowel movements a day. Diarrhea, hot, burning, lots of stomach pain, some bleeding. They don't need more bowel movements, right? They don't need formula number 1. They would go straight to this formula. This formula will put a smile on their face. They will bless the day they found you because it'll put the fire out starting already. Drink up. It'll put the fire out. It'll soothe the inflammation. It will coagulate that bowel movement into something a little more solid. You have to be careful with diarrhea. Diarrhea is caused, we're not talking about the bowel diseases now, we're just talking about when the rest of us get diarrhea. You know, people say, I got the 24-hour intestinal bug. There's no such thing. Whenever you get diarrhea, you have food poisoning. That's the bottom line. You have food poisoning. You've eaten something that your body, remember we have the tonsils here, and they detect anything that can hurt you going in here. Well, you have the Peyer's patches in the small intestine, and you have the appendix at the beginning of the large intestine. The minute that appendix detects any bacteria or fungus or virus or something that could hurt you, it gives you diarrhea. So all this material gets out of your body immediately, and you have a hot liquid stool. What will a doctor give you for that? Something to slow down your bowel. What is that going to do to the bacteria? it's going to make it very happy because it's going to overgrow, and now you're going to get worse. Remember we talked about easing the symptom but not looking at what's going on? Well, this is a godsend because it will coagulate the bowel material and turn the diarrhea into a softer or more solid bowel movement, but at the same time absorb all the bacteria and poison that's in your bowel. So you get the benefit of both, but without having a bacterial overgrowth. So if any of you ever get food poisoning, this is the first place to go, right here. If you're taking a trip around the world, around the country, this is like an American Express card. Don't leave home without it. You're in formula number 1, you're formula number 2. What's the first thing that happens to most of us in here when we travel? We don't go. Nothing happens. I don't know why. Something wrong with the airplane bathroom? You have a problem with your knees jamming into the door? This is how I do. I go, oh, I'm in the airplane bathroom. You shut the little thing, and hopefully the people outside know that you're going, and then you go to sit down, but the knees hit the door, and you can't make it all the way, so you have to press a little. Then you finally get down, and you ever push the plunger while you were still on? You think you're going to get sucked out the back end of the 747. I mean, it's not real comfortable, is it? And on your shoulders dripping the stuff off the sink that was there last. When you travel, you were probably all just there. That's why you're not laughing. My first trip to England, I'd never been on a train. We don't ride a lot of trains, and I came into Victoria Station in London, and I had to go. I sat down on the john, and I was going, and the guy was outside pounding on you, don't use the toilet in the station! Don't use the toilet in the station! I don't know what he was talking about. And then when I got off the train, I saw my toilet stuff right down there on the tracks. I didn't know that's where it went. You have a few of those experiences, and the next thing you learn is don't go when you're traveling. And your body senses that, and so when you travel, you tend to lose your rhythm, eat different food, go to a different time zone, and the next thing your bowel isn't working. So that Formula 1 will help you when you travel that way, and if you eat any suspect food, which happens, this will absorb it and keep you from the food poisoning. You don't know how many letters I get from people saying, thank God. We had a whole group of people. We ate some bad food. They were all in the hospital with food poisoning, and I was okay because I took this immediately. It is amazing what it will do for you with food poisoning. It will put out the fire for someone with the colitis or the diverticulitis, and it'll remove the old material. How well does it do that? It does an incredible job. I've had so many patients with all types of bowel diseases, and after going through this program, they would come back, and the doctor said after doing a colonoscope that you have a perfect pink bowel. It looks like a baby's rear end. It's perfect. And these were 70 and 80-year-old people with bowel disease. I had a man I met a while ago in San Diego. He had a cancer on his bowel. They couldn't get it off. They were going to resection 12 inches of his bowel. He did 6 cans of this in a row, went back, had a colonoscope, and the cancer was gone. I can tell you 1,000 stories. How about some worms? Want to hear about some worms? What kind of people are you? I didn't design this as a parasite remover, but it does an incredible job. It removes worms. Now, we've had stories of people getting up and talking about little worms, and then other people talking about the spaghetti and the fettuccine type worms, and other people the lasagna. And we've had all sorts of worm stories. We've had, I remember in my clinic, people used to bring in gallon jars that looked like a snake in there. I swear I'd never seen things like this. Jars full of it into my clinic. People still bring it over to the American Botanical Pharmacy. I've told you about that. We had this lady here with her once every bowel movement. We had one lady have a tapeworm almost 30 feet long. Took a couple hours to come out. Aliens 4,000. That's pretty scary, isn't it? The bottom line, everybody has parasites. Everybody. 1 cubic inch of grade A USDA beef on the average has 1,000 parasite larvae in it. We all have parasites. It's a scary thought, but when you die, the worms don't crawl in, they crawl out. Okay? We all have parasites. The key is, got you right in the guts on that one, didn't I? I heard that, ah! Bottom line is are those parasites going to live in you, or are they going to flow through you? If you're having 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, those parasite larvae don't hatch, and they just go right back out of you. If you're pooping once every other day or twice a week, they're going to hatch, they're going to hook on, they're going to love it. It's dark, it's damp, it's stinky, and they got lots of food. And they live inside you. And I've had patients with belly problems and colon problems for 10, 20, and 30 years, only to have them all gone in one night in a toilet bowl full of worms in their house. I've heard all the stories. We have an increase in the amount of parasitical infections today. It went into a lull for a while, and now it's back on the rise. So keeping your bowel clean is very, very, very important. Good thought. If your bowel is working normally, I suggest most cleanses once a season. So once a season, you could start with the Formula 1 and then work into your Formula number 2. If you're on Formula 1 and you take 4 capsules, when you begin this, you start taking 5. Always increase by 1 capsule, if not more, because this is cement. For those of you that might think, oh, I'll just try this on its own, you might never have a bowel movement. Okay? This doesn't create any peristalsis. It goes in, it hugs the wall, and it pulls debris off all the nooks and crannies and diverticulosis to clean your bowel out. And it just sits there. It absorbs and sits there. The number 1 formula is the formula that goes in and makes it leave and get out of you once it's done its job. That's why you take this 6 times a day, and then you take the 1 formula, the capsule or capsules in the evening to get this out. You use the whole can in 1 week. 5 to 6 times a day, you keep taking it, a heaping teaspoon in water. Can I borrow your teaspoon? Live demonstration. This is very scientific, very difficult. You take your jar. You all have one. You take a little bit of water first. This is the Dr. Schulze method. Otherwise, you end up with concrete on the bottom of your jar. A little bit of water. Now you take your spoon of formula number 2. This is very difficult. Watch, take notes. You add, some oranges. Put the top on. Voila. That's it. That's all you do. You may do that. Looks black, doesn't taste black. Don't be shy. Yes. No. If you're stuck, if you're constipated and Formula 1 hasn't worked yet, you don't have to do this. Because remember, you shouldn't start this until you're going. So those who have their jar, they remember a little water first, then a heaping teaspoon of Formula 2, and then fill your jar up with water. Now you can use juice. You know what happens when you use juice? It tastes great. What's happening when you use just water? What does it taste like? Nothing. It doesn't taste like anything. It's very bland.
You take it to Mexico with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you want Montezuma's revenge. Did you know, now this is very serious right now, did everybody know that diarrhea is inherited? It runs in your genes. You started it. Anytime you can get it in. When you're taking it 6 times a day, I have a schedule listed for you but you just work to keep pushing it, keep getting it in as many times as you can. If you were to leave this in here, it would turn into a jelly-like consistency, because that's what it's going to do in your bowel. Yummy. Now, some people have said, oh, but it's black. Well, black is not a color that we usually eat, but it doesn't taste black. It just looks black. Some people have said to me, isn't this a bit radical? Now, I've mentioned to you, you want to know radical? I had a young lady come to me in her mid-30s, developed a brain tumor. They decided to cut the top of her head off. They did. And when they went to scoop out the tumor, her brain had just like melted. So they put her brain back together, and they were going to tell her when she came to that she was going to die. She came to, and for almost 30 days was in intensive care. She said it felt like someone had hot drills and sledgehammers going through her brain. She was screaming, but couldn't move her whole body because she was paralyzed, so just silently screamed 24 hours a day with no sleep, and no one knew it. That's radical, right? Remember I told you about this, where the poop comes out the vagina? I've heard that story 15 times. That is radical. Where have we gotten so mesmerized, so sold, so hypnotized by medical killers and pharmaceutical drug pushers to where we think using a few herbs that grow outside is radical, and what these people are doing in the name of medicine is normal? What has happened to us? Boy. It just goes to show you what a tremendously great sales job that's been done on all of us. To where we all think, okay, doctor, if you say so, you got to cut off my arm. But we think it would be too weird or radical to use some of God's gifts to us. So enjoy your Formula 2. Yeah, and in juice it tastes even better. I'm going to have you on the advertisement. I had a blessing to speak in Louisiana a year or so ago, in a small town outside of Monroe called Tallulah, Louisiana. And it was a gathering of hundreds, 400 or 500 ministers from churches all through the South. And I was asked to speak there about natural healing, which I enjoyed. And it was a very different event for me, that I do speak in church groups and gatherings and for customs official gatherings. And you get people together, I'll come. Okay? If you build it, I'll come. And I like speaking to all types of groups. And I was invited down to this ministers' convention, and it was wonderful. And one minister after the next got up and was talking, and then it was great because they had live music, and someone would say something real fiery, and they'd beat the drums and play the organ. I really like that because I usually don't have musical accompaniment. So I got up, and I was like, now I hope you guys are still going to play music when I start going. And they said, oh yeah. And so I'd say something, and the cymbals would clash, and they said, we want to put you on the radio, live broadcast in 3 states. I said, okay. So they hooked me up for radio, live broadcast, 3 states. And I got up there and I started talking about the bowel and cleansing the bowel. And there was a whole group of other preachers up on the stage sitting in these nice easy chairs. It was beautiful. And they were yelling as I was talking about the bowel. And sometimes they would jump up and say something too. It was wonderful. And I was talking about the bowel because I saw all these people coming to this event for healing. They were all praying for a healing. Please, God, heal me. But they weren't helping out. And that's where I really learned that God helps those that help themselves, right? I said, you're expecting to pray and have God shine His light through this thing that rats wouldn't even want? I mean, let's get real. That cockroaches would turn down? This sewer, you expect to go out every day and fill yourself with the vile crap that sold us like 29-cent this and that, and junk food and crap and alcohol and cigarettes and fast food burgers and all these cream-filled crappy things, and then we expect God to bless us? I don't get it. How far do you think we can stray, and then we think we're going to get blessed? We better start doing some work here. And when I got done with that, one of the reverends jumped up and he said, "You here, Dr. Schulze, you got to clean out that nasty bowel." I thought, yes, yes. And I spoke there one day and they asked me to come back for a second day, so we really that was just a warm-up. And then the third day I had to go back, and there was a hurricane coming in, and I got in my rental car and I was on my way back to Monroe, Louisiana airport, and I turned on the radio and I heard myself. They'd taped it and they're playing it, and then I heard this lady pastor get up and she goes, "Now, did you hear what Dr. Schulze said? You got to clean that nasty bowel out." And I thought, my God, this is going to 3 states. I almost drove off the road. So invite me and I will come. Because we have to get this message out with the other one. Because I could not believe the food that all these people ate after this event. And I got them in this 2 days to start bringing in some of the great food that grows in this area of the South. Oh, some of the greatest food just grows wild down there. So I'm serious. If you have an event like that and you'd like me to speak, and you're not embarrassed of getting thrown out of town afterwards, no, seriously, I will come. I won't even charge you. I'll pay my own airfare, and I'll pay my own expenses. I don't charge anything. I use this money to do that, because this is all about passing on the word, right? I don't want to say that Tallulah, Louisiana is in the swamp, but when they gave me my key to my motel room, they also gave me a fly swatter. I'd never had anybody do that, fly swatter with the motel name on it. I couldn't figure out why until I opened the door of my motel room and it looked like a test area for mosquito implantation. I mean, it was pretty interesting. We have about 6 new products coming out that they're not really new, they're from my clinic, and I'm really thrilled about the next one that I'm going to talk about, and it's our new intestinal formula number 3. It is a liquid laxative based on fig juice and herbs like senna and cascara sagrada, and then herbs in there to make it taste nice like orange oil and aniseed. And it's a liquid. Now listen to what I'm saying, because I can't say I'm making a children's laxative. It's a pleasant tasting laxative for the entire family, for people of all ages, especially those who can't swallow a capsule, okay? Because we have so many lovely kids that can't go. Constipation is such a problem with kids, and I use this in my clinic, but we're not allowed to make it because you can't make a children's laxative. So this isn't. It's intestinal formula number 3 for all ages. I was amazed at the amount of constipated children in the clinic, largely due to genetics, also drugs that are taken by mom and dad, and then, of course, having babies in the hospital and all the things that you can do. Excuse me, there was some live food in there. And then you end up with little kids that can't go, and they're in pain and they're being tortured, and if the doctors get their hands on them, they will carve them up. And that, to me, being a dad, I can't stand that. Okay, the bowel. A lot of people drink their number 2. Any problems? Not yet. In your booklet, and if you have it here, fine, and if you don't, no panic. Between page 10 and 11, so we'll call that 10 and a half. Oh, actually, it's a page 11. It just doesn't have a number. Is this chart, diseases of the digestive system. Now, this is not a natural healing chart, or I didn't take it out of one of Dr. Jensen's colon books or anything like that. This is one of the most recent charts published by Medicine. Comes out of the Medical Chart series. Diseases of the digestive system. And where I want you to look is down to the lower right corner. And you will see right there a great photo of what is called diverticulosis of the colon. Small saccular herniation. And what is it filled with? I heard somebody say a word I wasn't going to repeat. Diverticulosis, small saccular herniations. There's a visual of it if you want to see a visual. We had this chart done by laser so you can get a good copy. It also shows up in the upper left-hand corner, the liver, and you have the gallbladder with some gallstones in, and you all don't have any of those anymore because you had the liver flush this morning, right? Okay, we'll be talking about that in a little bit. But I just wanted to point out this chart because it reflects to a lot of things you hear about, not only the anatomy of the colon and what it looks like and some of the parts, but you get an idea. Now, medicine forever, and we're going to talk a little bit about this now, appendicitis. Told you yesterday about the nurses squirting the appendixes after they had been removed to squirt the parasites at each other. Standard operating room practice. While you're sleeping, while you're in that blissful sleep, not being responsible for yourself, people are playing with your body parts. I'll tell you, Dr. Foster, Cindy Foster, is going to be speaking to you right after lunch today, and no matter how far I go with that, she's going to make it worse. You have a real treat this afternoon, and I'll tell you about that later. So I have argued for years, and Dr. Jensen has for years, and Dr. Stone and Dr. Christopher, that there's only really one cause of appendicitis, and that is constipation. The appendix, what did I say? Hit that funny bone. Laughter. Whew. We need more laughs. Constipation. Fecal matter being shoved into the appendix. The appendix is a hollowish organ at the bottom of your cecum. And when you're constipated, fecal matter is forced in, and your appendix swells, and it becomes inflamed, and then doctors cut it off. I have never, ever heard a medical doctor that I've talked to admit to that. Every medical doctor I've ever talked to says that is ridiculous. I cut off hundreds of appendixes. I've never seen that. The same way with medical doctors say they don't see diverticulosis. Well, you know, you don't see it very well because on the inside of the colon there's just a little pinhole. On the outside of the colon there's the balloon. So it isn't observed very well, but doctors would say that's ridiculous, that's ridiculous. I draw your attention to the bottom left of this chart, and it says fecalith obstructing lumen causing appendicitis. Now, what do you think a fecalith could be? I'll give you a hint. It's not a flying body through outer space. Thus proving the point that it is constipation. It's fecal matter shoved into your appendix. So what I'd like to talk a little bit this morning is what do we do for appendicitis? Not that we want to stop our colon from going. Okay. I worked with a lot of people with appendicitis. I had one rule in my clinic. Nobody goes to the hospital. And I had a second rule in my clinic. Nobody goes to the hospital. Amen. And I had a third rule in my clinic. Nobody goes to the hospital. First thing in appendicitis, number one. Don't go to the hospital. Oh yeah, thank you very much. That was one. Okay, 1A. Don't put anything in your mouth. Don't stop eating immediately. You're already stuffed. You're stuffed so much that poop is being pushed into your orifice of your appendix and inflaming it. Stop eating. Number 2, an enema. Start getting it out. Stop it going in and start it getting out. Remember, I said natural healing is very simple. It's always just a matter of stopping doing what was hurting you and beginning doing what will help you. So if you're stuffed and so much that your fecal matter is pushing into your appendix, stop stuffing and start eliminating. Now, you could take intestinal formula number 1, but I don't have 8 or 10 hours. Okay? I want fecal matter out of your bowel now. Okay, so the second thing is an enema. Dr. Christopher used to say that he gave so many people enemas that one day he knocked on the door of one of his patients and they yelled, "Friend or enema?" And once you evacuate the bowels with an enema, then you want to immediately start doing a high enema. Hey, lover. Oh, I love you. Hey, clapping. Can we clap? So, who am I today?
Are you Dr. Daddy?
Dr. Daddy. That's me. And who are you today?
Hello.
Arthur Schulze. But are you Dr. Arthur Schulze today?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you brought one of your favorite books here. Can we read it for everyone?
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah. See? Look, there's Missy over here.
Yeah. This book is Arthur's favorite. It's called Everyone Poops. They're all laughing. An elephant makes a big poop. Whoa. And a mouse makes a teeny poop. A one-hump camel makes a one-hump poop. A two-hump camel makes a two-hump poop. Only kidding. Fish poop. See the little poop coming out? And so do birds, look, while they're flying. And bugs, too. Different animals make different kinds of poop. Different shapes, different colors, and even different smells. Which end is the snake's behind?
Yeah.
I haven't figured that one out yet. What does whale poop look like? Some stop to poop, and others do it on the move. Some poop here and there and everywhere. Look at that. What's that?
A rabbit.
A rabbit. Others do it in a special place. See, there's poo-poo in the diaper.
Oh.
And grown-ups poop. Children poop too. Well, some children poop on the potty. Others poop in their diapers.
Yeah.
Some animals poop and pay no attention. Others clean up after themselves. These poop by the water. This one does it in the water. He wipes himself with paper, then flushes it down. All living things eat, so...
This is me.
Yeah, everyone poops. Can you clap? Here's your poo-poo book. So what do you think of this? I know. It's kind of intense, isn't
Where'd
it?
Mommy go?
Where'd Mommy go? Mommy's in the back. You want to go back and see Mommy? Thank you very much, Dr. Arthur Schulze, for bringing the poo-poo book in and sharing it with everyone. We love you.
Yeah.
I see Mommy. And he's got his American Botanical Pharmacy t-shirt on. That means that since he's not inoculated and I can't deduct him on my income tax, I can still write him off because he's got the t-shirt on. What's that, Arthur? Yes, you got your t-shirt on. Yeah. I love you. Now, come on, you're upstaging your dad now. You're going to have to wait a few years. I love you. Okay, your time's up. I'm back. Thank you for saving me. I needed it. I love being a dad. Okay. The basic rule: stop eating, do an enema, then do a high enema. A high enema. You know, I have to say, that's a wonderful kids' book, and it probably should be for all us adults too. So many kids like me have had constipation all their life because they were led to believe it was dirty, nasty, wrong, and embarrassing. And that's the type of book how we're going to change it, by not making it something wrong or bad. There's a new book in that series called Everyone Farts. And you can find it in a lot of kids' stores now. And there's a third one in the series, and I can't remember the name of that one right now. And I'm not joking. Okay, what to put in the high enema? Well, there's a number of things. I hate to just use water. A good herbalist would always want to make the enema be an herbal tea. Dr. Christopher liked to use catnip tea because it's mildly relaxing to the bowel. If you are having bowel spasms, you may want to use lobelia in the enema, a nice lobelia. If a person is extremely constipated and you feel that they could take a jolt, you could use the rectal injection out of the cold sheet treatment, which is the apple cider vinegar. I saw a face on that one. Yeah. Was it nice and soothing? No, we're going to talk about that later when we get into the incurables, and I'll tell you a few experiences with the rectal injection. But you want to get that bowel cleaned out. You want all the fecal matter out of that bowel, all the way up the descending colon, across the transverse, down the ascending, all the way to the cecum. You might even be able to get some of that fecal matter out of the appendix. It could take an hour or two working to get that bowel clean. The next thing, fine, start with some ICF, intestinal corrective formula number 1. Get it in. It'll take a while to work, but get it in. And you might even start with some juices. What type of juices might be good? Apple, prune. Yeah, juices that are going to make you go. That would be the next start. Then what about body work over the area? Now, you don't want to put your elbow right on the appendix and go for the gold, but you want to start some movement. The appendix is plugged up. Start with your hand down here at the iliac crest of the pelvis and work your way up and doing some movement. You want to do some massage. You also want to consume lots of water, juices, lots of fluid. Start drowning yourself with fluid. That'll help. You might have a little fever. If you want to put something locally right over the area, how about a castor oil pack? I have never, ever had anybody that their appendix blew up. They always got better. How soon? 3 hours in some cases, 3 days in others, a week and a half in others. It depends on how sick you were. It depends on what you've been doing. Now, if a person comes to you and they spent the last 45 years trying to kill themselves, you may or may not decide that you want to even deal with these people. One of the first rules I had to learn when I opened my clinic is just because someone comes and knocks on your door doesn't mean you have to work with them, right? And some people want you to be their doctor. Well, I didn't want to go to the doctor because I wanted to save money, so can you fix my appendicitis while they're eating a hot dog? And the answer is no. You know, there's some education that has to take place. So you're going to have to weigh that one out. We're going to talk a little later about saving your friends and relatives and loved ones and some of my feelings and thoughts on that. and the minimum requirements that these people have to do to earn their healing. So these are some of the simple things you can do that always got my patients over their appendicitis. And I've had some calls where I wasn't able to be there from all around the country, and I told people to do this routine, and they got their children and their grandparents and everybody through their appendicitis. So it's not difficult. The fear, of course, is, well, what do doctors say will happen if you don't go to the hospital immediately? You could die! Ooh, that sales pitch comes right out again fast, doesn't it? Your appendix could explode. It'd be like aliens, boom, and your appendix shoots across the room. Could explode and you could die. Now, people have died from it, but only when they let it go and had it multiple times and just were ignorant. See, you don't want to sit on that fence. That'll kill you. Immediately start any and all natural healing routines. Do nothing, or go to the hospital. Those are your three choices. My first would be do any and all natural healing routines. My second choice would be do nothing, because I am thoroughly convinced that your chances are better doing nothing. And even if I'm crazy, Dr. Mendelsohn said that too. Remember, we talked about him yesterday. The choice that I would not pick is go to a doctor or a hospital. I would take my chances.